And with me now, standing in Arbory, Castletown, Malew, is Jason Moorhouse. It's interesting to see you back here again. You obviously have stood out a bit. I think it was easy to say during the last 5 years.
Yeah, I've worked hard. I've asked lots of questions. Some of them were quite interesting and got an interesting response. And I've asked lots of motions and brought lots of motions and got things done.
And prolific asker of questions.
Yeah, it's been frustrating at times because you've used the normal channels, you've sent the emails, you've spoken to ministers, and it's been a case of, I'm going to ask a question, let's get an answer to this. And that last sitting of Tynwald was so frustrating because it actually brought a motion that would have solved the problem. And because they cut Tynwald short, we didn't solve the problem. So basically I was suggesting that all we needed to do was to say to officers, you've got to have a response within a certain amount of time. If that was there, MHKs, members of Tynwald, will get the answers they wanted when they wanted.
Okay, well, it's all wound down now, so let's talk about what's happening on the doorsteps. It's quite, three different sort of areas you cover there, don't you?
Yeah, they're very distinct, and the people looking at very different issues, but COVID is really still a concern, and yeah, it's one thing that a lot of people are really kind of saying, what have you done? And, that last set of regulations that I voted against was something that really is concerning them in terms of how unjust the regulations seem in terms of a certain grouping are tested, the 2+2 just walk in and out without any questions being asked, and there are issues there.
And lockdown or not lockdown, it's a very one side or the other side.
People are still scared. I think that third lockdown really got to a lot of people. Kind of the typical strong middle class, middle aged people were really pushed by that, and that did surprise me. The island was rocked by that, definitely.
So what are the local issues? I mean, bearing in mind, as I said, you've got these three different areas. Are there anything particular for you locally before we talk about national?
I think it's just that getting the economy going, that awareness about jobs, that awareness that things aren't quite right. We've had 2 years of instability. There's the general belief that we're moving forward, but often you get this kind of lag time where business is actually looking at how many employees they need and what cuts they could make. So, there is concern, and there's kind of the older age group have missed their family for a long period of time, and they're wondering whether it's actually safe to bring them across or go across, and so you've still got those issues in the background. So a lot of things, but a lot of things in common.
And on the national side of things, what are you planning for, asking or hoping you can get through?
I think it's just got to be that the economy, I think, it really surprised me in June that Alf brought that issue about the bond. We borrowed £400 million with no good reason. It was basically to give infrastructure 50 million and to restructure Steam Packet and MUA debt. And I just hope that we don't go down that road of more debt. We need to use what we've got really effectively. I was in health and infrastructure during the first lockdown. It was a completely different environment. The barriers between officers and politicians were removed, and we worked for the island, and that's how it should be.
With your education background, that's been a massive issue, isn't it, as well?
Oh yeah, that's been really concerning. I've still gone into school periodically just to kind of assist out with junior achievement, and to see the change over a 5-year period, it's been huge, and there's clearly a funding issue, and you can only make do amend for so long, and hopefully the next government's able to actually get some serious investment there. And the new school at Castle Rush.
I was going to say, you have got a new school coming. So.
Oh, well, hopefully, but it keeps getting kicked down the road.
Is it still being kicked?
It's we know where.
It's how much money they want to spend, isn't it? More than anything. Well, you want a nice, big, beautiful place, or just a blocky building or something.
Well, there are alternatives, but it's that cost overrun that's the issue. And I did say to the Treasury Minister in the last government that if you bring the bond, there should be some money there linked to actual investment in education. We're still no closer. The costs are going up, building materials are going up, the cost of the specs going up, and I just hope it can become a realistic investment because people need it. Unless we actually treat our young people correctly and they feel happy here, they won't return home once they've finished their course and things. So it is crucially important.
Now, you've been effectively a backbencher, but asking all these questions, but things will presumably change if you get back in. You've got eyes on any particular prize?
Not hugely so. It would be an interesting one because I did bring a motion in June in terms of the size and cost of government, and it was that point I thought, at some point if I were to become a minister, then I would have an input in changing things.
It's about, 500 and something over 5 years, didn't it? Something.
That's it, yeah, it's crazy. When we're trying to slim things down, it's just kind of this gradual growth all the time. It's a real worry, but we need to actually look at what we've got and make better use of them. And actually, when we're replacing staff, go back to that principle of, do we actually need them? Because it's wonderful to have more people around you, but the private sector is crying out for more workers and skilled workers, and we've got so many of them caught in government. So that's the thing. And I thought, if I were to become a minister, then potentially that is an area I could actually have some input into. Because it came out in debate, we're very traditional. We've got infrastructure here, we've got DEFA here, we've got Treasury here. And we look at someone like Google, they look at the whole company and take the whole thing forward. And that's how we should be thinking. We should be thinking modern and actually achieve the whole island.
How frustrating has it all been then? I mean, in that sense, I don't go too much about that past, but you learned a lot over
a huge amount.
Time, really. Yeah, how things are done or not done.
Yeah, I spent several years wondering why I was a teacher, and that was such good preparation, just in terms of finding ways to solutions, keeping going, encouraging other people and getting the results you want. So yeah, it has been frustrating, but it's nudge by nudge. You can't say we've not done it today so it's over. You've got to think we've still got tomorrow and we've learnt this so we can go forward and achieve. So
where would you fit best? I mean, education, obviously, or not? Or Minister of Education and everything else that goes with it?
It's
leisure?
Who knows? But yeah, it's basically having that drive to do something to achieve greater outcomes. And it was interesting that when I had my first meeting with Howard and he said, what you're interested in, I said, enterprise and treasury. And he said, think outside the box. Think of infrastructure, think of health. And I went home and phoned Dad and he said, what are you going to do there? And I said, I'm going to take it. And he said, oh. But it has been incredible. And initially I didn't ask many questions because basically all the things are happening in health and infrastructure. And to spend 4 years in infrastructure and 5 years in health has been frustrating, but I've learned a huge amount.
Now, anything that comes along has to be paid for, and we've got all these potential, bumps along the road here with income streams coming in and new tax levels. So, how do you balance your books when you come out with these ideas?
I think that's the key thing, and what I'm trying to say all the time is we need to use what we've got more effectively. We've got huge reserves, we've got a great staff, we've got a lot of staff, we've got an island that's incredible, and it's a matter of actually using what we've got rather than saying we need to borrow more money, we need to be looking for external consultants. Let's use what we've got and encourage those people. It must be so demoralising if you're in a department and you've got the skill set to do something and they bring in an external consultant to give that advice that you could give.
Yeah, but you see so many things, like the Douglas Promenade or Liverpool Landing. I mean, it's not been... How would you done things differently, or could you?
Of course, but everyone would say that.
Yeah.
But when I was in infrastructure, the first meeting I had on the promenade, I said, let's put in a utility channel, get all the utilities at the side of the road, and then turn everything else off, dig it out, job done. And they said, we can't do that. I said, why not? And it's basically a cost. And I said, well, in the long run, all that's got to be changed and updated. And we've seen that, and rather than do it in one go, it's been a repeat. I thought
they were doing that, to be honest, but they haven't. It's a bit of this, bit of that, is it?
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay, so just to finalise, where do you want to go if you got offered a minister?
I just want the opportunity to help make things better.
But you don't want
any particular. I think that's too restrictive.
Yeah, okay.
I think on a small island, it's a matter of working together to bring ideas to the table and to actually listen to others and actually get the solutions that work.
But you're ready to step up to be in Coman then?
If I was given that opportunity,
you're ready. You feel?
I feel I've learned a lot, and I think I can bring something to the table that will be useful and beneficial. Definitely.
Okay, and to finish with the usual thing about around the table, you got to pick the chief minister.
It's going to be an interesting one. I was very, very, very close to voting for Alf last time, and I think that again will be the case, but it depends who's there. Someone like Julian Watterson, who's been Mrs. Speaker, who's been Home Affairs Minister, he could be the surprise candidate. So if I'm in a position to choose, I listen carefully to all of them and
obviously you pick anyone that's presumably already in there, maybe, but it doesn't have to be just the obvious suspects.
I think it's going to be those two in terms of Alf will take it forward. But then you've got Alex and you've got David, who've both brought amazing things in the past 2 years. So Yeah, let's
Is that
see.
quite tricky then to make that decision then?
Oh yeah, because you not only look at the individual, you look at how they work with other people and what they can bring to the island.
Oh, well, just to finish with, did you go the right way on this one then? When you had the vote between, I presume you went for Quayle, did you, and not Cannon? But
Yeah.
do you think you made the right decision on that one? Then?
At that time, but if I had the same choice at the start of the next Parliament, then I may have come up with a different decision, yeah.